Hi, this is Justin Colletti of SonicScoop, and today we have another video where we're going to actually get to hear some tracks, hear some real mixing and mastering going on using some of my favorite plugins, this time from Plugin Alliance. This is in honor of them having a huge sale this month of November 2019 on their new Mega Bundle. The Mega Bundle from Plugin Alliance, I pretty much think just about everything Plugin Alliance makes, more than 100 plugins, most of them modeled on some really amazing analog hardware, has some amazing plugins in it. I'll go over that right now on a session that I'm going to open up inside of Pro Tools. One more little thing before we get started, you can try out any of these plugins for free. Just go to plugin-alliance.com where you can download and do a 14-day free trial on any and all of these tools. My friends over at DeGraw Sound were kind enough to send me a track of actually one of my mastering clients, an artist named Sharon Fischman, really killer songwriter. And I want to hear some of this stuff in action, just to give you a sense for A, what some of these plugins sound like, but also B, what a lot of the hardware that it was originally modeled on sounds like. There's some really cool tools in here, and I think we're going to come away with not just a tour of some really cool plugins, but some strategies on how to do things like bus compression, what to listen for with bus compression, how to go about subgroup mixing, what you might do with mixing stems, and some really fun tricks on things like drums, bass, electric guitar, all that stuff. So I hope you're going to enjoy this one. Let's dive right in. All right, I have a great track here from this artist named Sharon Fischman, really excellent songwriter and lyricist in particular, and the production here is pretty great right off the bat. I've just got these stems here. These are some beautiful stems, the guys at DeGraw Sound, the way they submitted them. It's going to sound pretty much like a final mix, just hitting play, but we'll be able to go under the hood and explore some tools on some key instrument groups.
A glimpse across the street, and you look back at me. I'm holding on, so shine your light. All the nights and all the days, all the time that slipped away. It's been so long, but it's alright. Slip into the night.
So already the raw mix sounds good. The balances are really already there. And let's see if we can do some finishing touches really quick. I'm going to try to, in like less than 15 minutes, take this from sounding like a really good set of stem mixes to something even more polished. Let's jump in a little closer to a chorus here.
Beginning of the love we always knew. All I know is what I feel for you. Love knows no distance. You can't resist it.
All right, so the first thing I'm going to do here is just jump into some mix bus processing and see if we can do a little bit of what some people call top-down mixing, where we are applying some bus processing that we're going to mix through. And for a lot of people who are mixing, I generally recommend the process of roughing in levels first, and then if you're going to be doing bus processing, getting it in pretty fast after you have your levels roughed in. So I'm just going to go here and just grab, I'm going to go into the dynamic section, and I set it up here so pretty much every plugin I have listed is something from Plugin Alliance. The only exception here is I think I left my Isotope Ozone plugins in here. But other than that, pretty much everything on this list that you see is either a stock plugin or a Plugin Alliance plugin. And there's so much good stuff to choose from. This Shadow Hills mastering compressor, man, this is one super sexy piece of hardware and plugin. It's got two separate compressors, discrete and opto compressor. We could play around with this and just kind of go through some presets and see if it's the right thing for us.
All the nights and all the days, all the time that slipped away. It's been so long, but it's alright. Slip into the night. What am I feeling? This is the...
And that's not bad. We're already getting just a little bit more impact and sparkle out of this track just by going over to a preset really quick in the Shadow Hills. But I'm not sure if this is exactly the one that's going to give me the flavor I want for this particular track. There's so much more that we could adjust here. We've got the threshold for our optical compressor, the threshold for a discrete compressor, and we can just mess around with both here. But I think the thing that I want to try here is maybe a little bit more of an SSL style compressor. So of course, Plugin Alliance has got you covered for that. There's actually more than one SSL style compressor, but the one I want to pull up is the newest one they have here called the Townhouse compressor. And this, I believe, is modeled after a pretty old school, really special SSL G series, a very particular unit that they thought was a super great sounding one. It's a compressor that was built by the engineers at Townhouse Studio, I think kind of old SSL parts that was used by a ton of artists from Queen to Muse to Sting. Let's hear how this sounds, first bypassing it and then just engaging it.
Slip into the night. What am I feeling? This is the beginning of the love we always knew. All I know is what I feel for you. Love knows no distance. You can't resist it.
All right, subtle, but definitely different. There's a tiny bit of level boost in there, but even more so, I'm hearing a little bit more added impact and articulation and definition on things. Let's go with this and just kind of keep on trucking down the line. One of the next things I'm going to pull up, and this is something that in particular brainworx, one of the main plugin companies at Plugin Alliance, is known for, is their console bundles right now. And their latest one here is the Focusrite SC console. Let's open this guy up. I'm going to go over here and pull up the BX console Focusrite SC. And I've actually instantiated it across all of my tracks on this session just by hitting the Option key and then instantiating the plugin. So I've got this beautiful Focusrite console loaded up onto every single channel. And one of the really cool things that Plugin Alliance does is this thing called TMT, or Tolerance Modeling Technology, where they really try to emulate not only the old console's controls, but the fact that each channel would sound slightly different from one another to give us a little bit of that kind of analog randomness and depth in our signal. So this may look a little confusing at first to those of you who are not used to using old school consoles, but everything here makes sense if you spend just a tiny bit of time with it. If you already know how some of these old school consoles work, you'll have a sense for what's going on here pretty darn quickly. And if you don't, this is a great way to learn about audio and the possibilities of audio using an interface like this. And I also particularly love some of these old school console interfaces because they really force me to listen a lot more than look. When it comes to my metering, I'm just getting a few things. I'm getting how much signal is coming out both in dBu metering and in VU metering, so an average and a peak level, as well as how much compression is happening, how much gating is happening. There's no EQ charts that are showing me the frequency response. There's no lines that are showing me the EQ curve. I really got to listen, and I find a much more meditative process when I'm using something like this. And it'll have a little bit of a sound. If we just bypass this plugin and unbypass it, it really gives just a tiny bit of tone and mojo before we even do anything. Super subtle, but there's just a little bit of extra depth and width there going on for me, probably from that tolerance modeling technology where there's just tiny, tiny minute differences from channel to channel. But the real fun is going to start happening when we actually start digging in and tweaking some stuff. All right, some other really cool things I want to show you that you're only going to find from the Plugin Alliance family of plugins is going to be the SPL Attacker. SPL makes really interesting stuff that goes beyond dynamic control, what we call transient shaping. So I'm going to open up one of these. This is one of the many brands over at Plugin Alliance. For those of you guys who are not familiar with Plugin Alliance, they're kind of a distributor of a whole slew of plugins, many of them modeling some really interesting forward-looking boutique analog hardware, and some of them being, digital only designs that can only do stuff that digital plugins can do. This one is kind of based around some of the SPL transient shaping stuff. This Attacker plugin is going to allow us to add more attack to drums. So I'm just going to solo out the drums really quick. You could use this in other things like bass and guitar as well, but you can really hear what it does, especially so on something like drums. Let's check it out. So I think you can hear the attack of the drums popping out, and it's bringing out attack in a way that a compressor can't quite. This is a little much for me, so I'm going to back it off and make it a little bit more subtle. So this could be just the right thing for a drum kit or just the wrong thing, depending on what you need to pull out of the drums. But you can also use an even more advanced version of something like this. You can adjust both the attack and sustain of the signal, as well as adding on some additional dynamic control. There's a ton going on in this plugin, but for right now, let's just use this simple guy. And I'm actually going to dupe out our drum track. I'm going to do a drum duplicate so we can go with a little bit more heavy processing on our parallel drum bus while we leave this main drum channel alone. So let's go into here to track, duplicate. All right, now we've got a pure duplicate of our drum bus, and let's mess around with that and get really crazy with it. The next thing I want to do is get a little bit crazy with our compressor. And for that, I'm going to use one of my favorite crazy compressors, the elysia mpressor. This one is wild. It's the first compressor that I ever used back when it came out in hardware, where you had a control like this, the gain reduction limit control. So you could set some really crazy compression, but then make sure that's never compressing by more than, say, 10 dB. And this is really, really useful. Let's just open up a preset here. Let's see if they have a good drum preset, and let's mess with it from there. So I'm going to open up this big drums preset here and just see how this sounds right off the bat. All right, that's doing something, but I think it's letting too much attack through for a parallel compression technique, and I also want to try to smash things a little bit more. Let's see where I can take this. So we're getting a little bit more of a robotic feel already. Let me tweak this just a hair more. I'm going to engage this gain reduction limit. Yeah, so now it's never compressing by more than, 9.5 dB or so. And now we've got a real kind of robot drum feel. That's fun for parallel compression. Next thing I want to do is EQ this guy. Let me throw up an EQ real quick. And for this, I think I'm going to try one of their other consoles, just to show you how many different consoles are in here. There's a Neve console that we can grab, this BX Console N. And this is laid out just like a Neve, I think maybe V-Series console, one of those. Really great EQ on this one. We could have just used the compressor in this console. These console strips are so great because they'll have like high pass filter, low pass filter, compressor, EQ, often gate or expander in a lot of these. But I'm just going to play around this Neve EQ for just a minute here and try to get something a little bit more interesting out of this parallel track. All right, I think I'm starting to get something where I'm just kind of boosting some lows, boosting some highs, but I'm also going to want to engage one of these low pass filters here. And I'm just going to kind of pull that low pass filter up to, just around 60 hertz so I can boost the bottom without boosting the extreme sub. And that'll be a fun little drum sound that we can tuck in under our main drums. So here's our original unaffected drums. So we're already adding just a little bit more slam to those drums with some parallel compression treatment. All right, I want to keep on just going through track by track. Are you with me? And we'll just try something different on each one of these and see how fast we can kind of steam through and just see if we can make something a little bit more out of this stem mix. All right, bass. There are so many different things we could do to the bass. Let's listen to what's going on here and come up with an attack plan. All right, being a bass stem, this already has some nice distorted bass mixed into it. You probably didn't notice a lot of that bass distortion when we were listening to the track down. It's just giving it a little bit of definition while in context, not drawing too much attention to it itself. But I think we can maybe bring back just a little bit of the attack on that bass and maybe bring back some additional dynamics. This is something where you can actually use a compressor to uncompress a signal slightly. So let's play around with that. I'm going to pull up another fun compressor here. This one from Plugin Alliance is going to be the Millenia TCL2, a really clean hardware compressor. Let's hear this, and let's again just pull up a preset and tweak from there. I'm literally just going to be pulling up presets and do a tiny bit of tweaking for this entire thing, and I think we're going to take this track pretty far, pretty fast. All right, here's our electric bass preset. Let's hear that for a second. We're hearing even more hair. I think I want to slow down this attack time slightly to just bring out a little bit of articulation on the front end. And I think I want to speed up this release time a little bit. I'll also turn down this output level control so that we're not fooling ourselves by just increasing the volume and thinking it sounds better. So here's what I've got now. And I think you'll notice what's happening now is the higher notes in this bass riff are kind of starting to leap out a little bit more. The compressor is tamping down a little bit more on those low note hits, and then it's allowing a little bit of relief for those high notes to come up. So I think some of the frills in our bass line are going to poke out a little bit more in the context of the full mix now. I think you'll find that the bass kind of disappears a little bit more without this compressor, and then some of that articulation pops out just a hair bit more with it engaged. Let's hear that one more time. So it's just accenting the upbeats on that bass a little bit more and making it feel just a tiny bit more groovy. Subtle, subtle change, but something that's just adding a little bit more definition and a little bit more pulse and fun. You go a lot crazier with an effect like this to make it even more significant. But for a couple of seconds of tweaking, I think that's doing something fun here. All right, I think I'm going to skip over this percussion track really quick, and let's get into guitars. And you know what? We'll do the same thing. We'll just grab this same Millenia compressor really quick and see if we can do something fun with that. Here's a dirty guitar preset. Let's hear what's going on with this before. I think I'm going to slow down the attack and the release just a little bit here. And then we're just getting a tiny bit more bite out of that staccato guitar and a tiny bit more sustain out of that lead guitar riff that comes in. Let's keep that. Let's move on. Next, we've got this little organ track. Let's hear what this sounds like. Great, it's like a Mellotron string thing plus maybe a Whirly or a Rhodes in there. I'm not quite sure which. I'm going to guess Whirly. I'll have to ask Ben. And let's just, again, go in real quick, this time a preset on the Focusrite console. Let's hear what it sounds like. I am just going to grab the organ preset and see how it sounds. Great, it's just adding a little bit more life to it, a little bit more sustain, a little bit more hair. There's a tiny bit of a bass and a treble boost going on here. In context, I think it's going to add just a little bit more edge to this guy. Now we're going to do something really fun, I think, in this horns track that mostly just happens in the chorus. All right, for this, I want to go a little bit crazier. I'm going to grab another brainworx plugin that is a lot of fun. I'm going to go here under my sound field options, and I'm going to use the brainworx stereo maker. This thing is absolutely crazy. And let's, again, just do a preset and just see how it sounds. All right, I'm grabbing the horn preset. Let's hear it. First, without. All right, if you're listening on a halfway decent system there that has some type of stereo something going on, you're probably hearing a pretty dramatic change. If you're just listening in your iPhone speaker, first of all, what are you doing? But second of all, you might not hear the stereo spread, but wow, that is really huge and really interesting. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Now, when I'm doing actual mixing, I'm going to be listening to a lot more stuff in context and making these tweaks as I go along. But again, just trying to go rapid fire, show you a bunch of plugins, and let's hear what we did and tweak from there. All right, so I'm just going to move on to our background vocals here. And this time, again, let's just use this Focusrite console that is built in, and I'm just going to grab, call me silly, a background vocal group. And we'll just compare a couple of these presets, see what we like the sound of better.
Slip into the night. What am I feeling? This is the beginning of the love we always knew. Slip.
There's a really nice high frequency boost happening on this Focusrite console here. It's maybe a little bit too big, so I'll back off just a hair on this. And I think I'm going to turn down this expander just a little bit so we're not having it pop out quite so much. But let's listen to this before and after again.
Slip into the night. What am I feeling? This is the beginning of the love we always knew.
Sweet. Let's do the same thing on that lead vocal using, once again, just this Focusrite channel strip here and its built-in compression and EQ. And I'm, again, just going to grab female vocal preset and see if we like the sound of it.
Slip into the night. What am I feeling? This is the beginning of the love we always knew. All I know is what I feel. Slip into the night. What am I feeling? This is the beginning of the love we always knew.
Great, and with just a tiny bit of tweaking here, we can kind of improve things just a hair further. I'm just going to back off on the mix, not boost quite so much level in the high end. Another fun thing to add on to this vocal is this Purple compressor. Again, I've just kind of left it in the factory default settings, doing almost nothing. But let's hear our before and after on this vocal. First, adding in this Purple compressor.
Love we always knew. All I know is what I feel for you. Love knows no distance. You can't resist it.
And just adding a great tone, even though there's very little compression actually happening. And then we've got a little bit more tone control with this Focusrite, adding some EQ here. Really beautiful top end boost.
Love we always knew. All I know is what I feel for you.
And a little bit goes a long way there. And let's now start hearing some of these changes in context. And one thing I'm going to add on while we're doing that is a really fun tool here for a little bit of saturation on the mix bus called the black box. This is a great saturator. When this tube saturator originally came out, people really wanted to hear the sound of this thing. It's got two different types of saturation that you can turn up, the pentode or triode type of saturation, and then you've got this saturation knob and you can boost up or down the output gain. And let's just go through a couple presets here and see what we like the sound of.
Slip into the night. What am I feeling? This is the beginning of the love we always knew. All I know is what I feel for you. Love knows no distance. You can't resist it. Slip into the night. What am I feeling? This is the beginning of the love we always knew. All I know is what I
great. There's just some beautiful extra kind of edge and shimmer there. It's also bringing up our level a tiny bit, but you can really hear some additional depth. I think even when I turn down this output control, we're going to hear a big difference in the before and after. Just a nice bit of sheen if you're listening on a decent set of speakers. And when I'm doing mastering or stem mastering, I'm almost always adding some saturation, whether that's with whatever analog hardware I'm using in mastering or with emulations like this, that just add that little bit of extra character that's hard to get without them. All right, we went through this super fast, lickety-split, just threw up a bunch of things, grabbed a couple of presets. Could it actually sound better from just doing that? Let's find out. All right, I'm going to bypass pretty much everything right here, and I'll even bypass these drums. Let's hear kind of before and after each of these things, and you tell me whether you think it sounds better. Oh, before I play it back, let's just add on two more things I want to play around with as it's going down. A really fun thing, again, a brainworx one called the BX Control. And this one is going to allow us to add some more stereo width. I will, again, just grab a preset here, adding 50% width to this guy, and I'll play around with the settings there. And one more fun thing to grab is going to be an EQ. I could use one of the Maag Audio EQs. These are a lot of fun. I'm going to just use this Millenia here because it's, again, super simple, super clean sounding. And I'll just do some really tiny tweaks here. I think that I'll probably want to end up increasing the low end a tiny bit, maybe a tiny bit of top end will add on to this guy, and maybe then some tiny cuts here around 500-ish and around somewhere in the 200-300 range. And let's hear what all this sounds like. Here it is first with nothing on.
This is the beginning of the love we always knew. All I know is what I feel for you. Love knows no distance. You can't resist it. All I know is what I feel for you. Love knows no distance. You can't resist it.
All right, there's definitely the track volume is coming up a hair, but I think those horns are really spreading out and becoming more of a featured thing, as well as the vocal kind of coming forward a little bit more. I think we maybe brighten up the vocal a hair too much, so I'll back off a little bit on that. And now I want to start thinking about some stereo bus processing I'd use here. And Plugin Alliance has a really, really fun solution for stereo bus processing. It is called the Masterdesk, and the Masterdesk is a really great kind of almost preset-based instant mastering tool. You have a lot of control over just what it does, though. So if you're going to be doing kind of some faux masters on your own tracks, man, this would be one of my preferred tools for just amping up the signal in a way that sounds really good. So let's just grab Masterdesk. I'm going to go here to Dynamics again and just grab the Masterdesk plugin. And I think pretty instantly, shopping through some presets, you can hear some pretty big changes.
This is the beginning of the love we always knew. All I know is what I feel for you. Love knows no distance. You can't resist it. All I know is what I feel for you. Love knows no distance. You can't resist it. Do you say what you mean? Are you always what you seem? This is the beginning of the love we always knew. All I know is what I feel for you. Love knows no distance. You can't resist.
Okay, we're starting to get into the right place. Just a couple more quick tweaks here. We don't need quite so much level boost, so I've brought that down here and bring up the mid-range just a hair. And let's go to a further chorus. And again, we'll hear the before and after with some of this stuff engaged and bypassed.
Feeling. This is the beginning of the love we always knew. All I know is what I feel for you. Love knows no distance. You can't resist it. All I know is what I
there we go. In just a handful of minutes, we have created a track that already sounds a bit bigger, brighter, more alive. And this is with me barely tweaking anything. All of these plugins just sound great. They do that kind of thing that analog hardware does, where you put them on and they immediately have just a little bit of tone. And each one of these additions was fairly subtle, but they're really adding up as things go. And if this track needed heavier mixing, I'd be using some of these plugins in a heavier way and making some really bold choices with these. But it's interesting to hear that really quickly we could just bring some more attack out of our drums with this SPL Attacker. We could throw on this elysia compressor to get some really demented sounds coming out of our drum bus. And we could throw on this Neve EQ really quick to get a really interesting drum sound. Let's hear that again. And then we were able to do things like add on some articulation to our bass, bring back some of the attack, bring back some of the dynamics. We could add on a little bit of sparkle to our lead vocal. We could widen out those horns. This was a really fun one. That stereo maker really just makes them feel even more featured in those choruses. So some really great sounds there already. The big question here is, with all this tiny bit of tweaking we've done really quickly, does the track sound better or worse? That's a good question to ask. And a good way to find out is another one of the new tools in here. This one is called the Metric AB from ADPTR Audio. And this will really give us a sense for whether we are improving things or hurting things with all these little tweaks we just made. So I'm going to bypass everything once again here. And I actually pulled up both the original mix here and some mastered versions I did. Mastered version and then some even hotter mastered versions. Sometimes when I'm working with a client long distance, I'll kind of commit more than one version of the master. And if I am not exactly sure what the client is looking for, sometimes I'll send them 2 options to choose from. Or I might keep another option in my back pocket in case they want to hear even more saturation on things. So this is really great. I can load up them super easy and hear the original mix that Ben sent me, plus some of these mastered versions. And just here with a few minutes of tweaking, how close we got to his final mix and how close we got to the mastered versions. Again, we'll start off listening to just by itself, no processing the original tracks. And then as I hit these buttons, we can kind of switch back and forth between the different options here.
A glimpse across the street, and you look back at me. I'm holding on, so shine your light. All the nights and all the days, all the time that slipped away.
So I have them level matched here, which I did just by hitting this match button a little earlier off screen. And you can tell already that the final mix is just a little brighter, a little bit more articulate than the original. Let's listen to them again with the main version and some of these mastered versions.
This is the beginning of the love we always knew. All I know is what I feel for you. Love knows no distance. You can't resist it. All I know is what I feel for you. Love knows no distance. You can't resist it. Do you say what you mean? Are you always what you seem? I don't know why I feel this way. All the roles we have to play, all the things we've got to say. Don't say goodbye, so won't you stay? Slip into the night. What am I feeling? This is the beginning of the love we always knew. All I know is what I feel for you. Love knows no distance. You can't resist it. All I know is what I
Okay, so we've gotten pretty close with just a few tweaks in a few minutes. Is there more I would do to make it sound even more like the final mastered versions? Absolutely, but as you can see, I barely tweaked anything, and we're already getting a nice polish and sheen from plugins that can do very subtle things that are a lot like just putting analog hardware in a track and doing very little, and very extreme and very interesting things. And I think you have heard examples of both of those in here. Oh my goodness, there's so much more I could go through. So many plugins we did not try. I mean, under the EQs, there's the Lindell stuff. There's the Maag EQ stuff. Absolutely wonderful, really fun stuff to use. Under our reverbs, we've got the BX Rooms plugin, as well as the unfiltered audio stuff that has some kind of reverby effects in there. Really interesting stuff from these guys. This is one of the newer developers. The Biome plugin from Unfiltered Audio, really interesting clipping and other effects in there. The Unfiltered Audio stuff, of course, also does pitch shifting and delay and all sorts of weird stuff. Under your harmonic, there's these Ampeg bass amps, models of them. Really super classic stuff. If you were to plug in just a straight bass DI and get the sound of an Ampeg amp off of that. The Angle guitar amps. The Elysia character color box. This is a really interesting one, an analog saturator that they've modeled. Really simple to use, really interesting sounding. Then under dynamics, there's even more we didn't try. I mentioned SPL, but their SPL Iron mastering compressor. This is a super cool one. It looks a little complicated at first, but once you start using it, it is really simple, easy, and intuitive, and just interesting sounding mix bus compressor. The other things, I wish I was the guy to show these off even better than I could, would be some of the instruments, like the Thorn. This is one of their new ones, the Oberhausen, which is the classic Oberheim synthesizers. In addition to those two, you've got the new Unfiltered Audio Lion synth. This is a really fun modular synth. Really beautiful possibilities here. For a whole list of all of the stuff these guys make, check out the Mega Bundle. Right now on sale, instead of spending thousands of dollars to buy all these plugins, you could normally rent them now. This is a new thing for $250 for the year, or $25 if you just want to do it monthly. Definitely, absolutely check out the options here. There's just so many plugins. I mean, if you look through the list of stuff, the elysia Alpha Compressor, the SSL consoles, the SPL Transient Designer. This is one of those ones where you can adjust both the attack and the sustain of the signal. Really interesting stuff you can do here. The Ampeg bass amps, the Maag bundle, the SPL stuff. You get so many of these just included in that main bundle. So check it out. Check out the annual plan. I hope this was useful for you. I hope it was fun to crack things open and hear a few tweaks in real time, going rapid fire absolutely as fast as I can to make things sound somewhat interesting, barely doing any tweaks at all. Thank you to Plugin Alliance for partnering with us on this video and giving me all these amazing plugins to try out. I am going to be using these constantly. There's a whole bunch I've already been using constantly, and now I get to use all of the plugins in their Mega Bundle constantly. I suggest you do the same. A lot of fun to work with. Thank you to Sharon Fischman for letting us hear her track and go under the hood of it and really hear some of these changes on a really cool tune from a great songwriter and performer. I'll put a link in the show notes to where you can hear more of her music. Also, big thanks to Ben Rice and the folks at DeGraw Sound for sending us such beautiful, well-organized, already so well-mixed stems. But very quickly, we were able to add a few things and get things sounding closer to the final master without even too many tweaks, just getting the tone of some of these wonderful plugins. Thank you to all the brands from Plugin Alliance, everyone from Unfiltered Audio to SPL to Elysia to brainworx. So many great tools in there. Thank you for hanging out with me. If you haven't done so already, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and do yourself a favor and hit that notifications bell. If you enjoyed this video and got this far into it, then you'll definitely want to do that to make sure you don't miss any more. And one more thing, you can try out any of these plugins for free. Just go to plugin-alliance.com, try out the 14-day free trial there. Thanks for hanging out with me. This has been Justin Colletti of SonicScoop. See you next time.